Most people believe that understanding others is simply a matter of listening carefully to what they say. If that were true, misunderstandings would be rare, conflicts would dissolve easily, and deception would be obvious the moment it appeared. Yet in real life, we often walk away from conversations feeling confused, unsettled, or quietly uneasy, unable to explain why something felt off. This happens because the human mind speaks long before the mouth does, and long after the words have stopped. At some point, almost everyone has wished they could truly know what another person was thinking, not to control them, not to manipulate them, but simply to understand, to protect themselves from harm, and to respond with wisdom instead of reacting blindly. Yet most people look in the wrong place. They listen harder to words, when the truth is quietly unfolding elsewhere. What we commonly call mind reading is deeply misunderstood. It is not a supernatural ability, not a form of guessing, and certainly not a method for domination or control. True understanding is far more subtle and grounded than that. In its truest sense, mind reading is the ability to recognize the silent language of human beings, the language that appears before words are chosen, the language that continues even when someone is silent, the language expressed through behavior, reactions, presence, and absence. This silent language reveals itself constantly, but only to those who are present enough to notice it. Words are often rehearsed, filtered, and shaped by intention, but the unspoken signals of the mind are spontaneous. They emerge before thought has time to interfere. In Buddhist wisdom, the mind has its own way of communicating. It does not rely on sentences or explanations. It speaks through patterns, through movement, through attention, through the small instinctive actions that arise before conscious control. This is why those who speak less often understand more. There is an old Buddhist story about a man who could not see with his eyes, yet perceived people more clearly than those with perfect vision. Because he did not rely on appearances, he listened with his entire being. He observed how people acted under pressure, how they responded when challenged, how their behavior shifted when no one was watching. What he understood was simple, yet profound. The mind is always revealing itself, even when it tries to hide. This understanding, however, requires an ethical foundation. Reading the mind of another person is not about exposing them or gaining advantage. It is about understanding without judgment. It is about reducing harm, both to others and to ourselves. Buddhism teaches that wisdom without compassion becomes cruelty, and perception without awareness becomes distortion. That is why the foundation of true understanding is not technique, but stillness. If your own mind is restless, you will misread others. If your thoughts are racing, you will project your fears onto them. If your emotions are unsettled, you will see threat where none exists. A noisy mind sees only noise. To understand another person, your own mind must first become quiet, not empty but clear, not passive but attentive. When the mind settles, perception sharpens naturally. You begin to notice what was always there, subtle shifts in energy, small inconsistencies between words and actions, moments of hesitation that reveal inner conflict, and moments of ease that reveal truth. This is why monks, sages, and deeply present individuals often seem to know what others are thinking, not because they possess secret knowledge, but because they are fully here. They are not trapped in past regrets or racing ahead to future worries. They are not preparing their next response while the other person is still speaking. They are simply observing, and in that observation, the inner world of another person becomes visible. There are 3 silent languages through which the mind communicates, 3 pathways that reveal inner states without a single word being spoken. Most people overlook them entirely, while others sense them unconsciously without knowing why they feel uneasy, safe, drawn in, or resistant. Those who learn to recognize these languages move through life with greater clarity, compassion, and discernment. They are less easily deceived, less reactive, and far more grounded in their interactions. In the next part of this journey, we will begin exploring these silent languages one by one, not as tools for control, but as mirrors for understanding human nature more deeply. The first of these languages is the one people struggle to conceal the most. It reveals fear, honesty, interest, and avoidance all at once, and it begins with the eyes. First technique: observing the eyes. Among all the ways the human mind communicates, the eyes are the most revealing. They rarely speak, yet they almost never lie. Long before words are formed, the eyes respond. They register fear, interest, hesitation, sincerity, and withdrawal in ways the mouth cannot easily control. This is why, in moments of quiet attention, the eyes often tell a story that words carefully avoid. Many people try to manage their speech, choosing phrases that sound correct or convincing, but very few can fully manage their gaze. The key insight in observing the eyes is not to hunt for deception, but to notice alignment. When what a person says and what their eyes express move in harmony, there is usually honesty and presence. When the words sound confident, but the eyes resist, scatter, or retreat, something inside is not settled. This does not automatically mean lying. More often, it means discomfort, uncertainty, or inner conflict. The mistake most people make is rushing to judge instead of calmly observing. When someone consistently avoids eye contact, it often signals a desire to withdraw. They may feel unsafe, overwhelmed, or unwilling to fully engage. Their body is present, but their mind is looking for an exit. When the eyes move rapidly, shifting from place to place, it can indicate restlessness or anxiety, as if the mind is scanning for relief. In contrast, when a person's gaze is steady without being forced, it often reflects genuine presence. They are not performing the conversation, they are inhabiting it. These patterns are subtle, and they appear differently in each individual, which is why mechanical interpretation is dangerous. Observation must remain soft, flexible, and contextual. Buddhist practice emphasizes this gentleness. Observation is not interrogation. To watch the eyes skillfully, the observer must first cultivate inner awareness. If you watch with suspicion, you will see threat everywhere. If you watch with fear, you will interpret every movement as danger. But if you watch with calm attention, patterns reveal themselves naturally. This is why the state of the observer matters more than the behavior being observed. A restless mind distorts perception. A settled mind clarifies it. In Buddhist understanding, the eyes reflect the condition of the mind. A calm mind produces a grounded, open gaze. Even in silence, there is depth. A scattered mind produces a restless gaze, pulled outward by internal noise. This does not make one person better than another. It simply reflects inner conditions. When we see this clearly, compassion arises. Instead of judging someone for avoiding eye contact, we may recognize fear. Instead of reacting to wandering eyes, we may recognize overwhelm. This is where ethical awareness becomes essential. Observing the eyes is not about labeling people as honest or dishonest, good or bad. It is about understanding their inner state in the moment. The same person may show different patterns on different days, under different pressures. Buddhism teaches impermanence for this reason. Nothing remains fixed, including human behavior. What you observe is not who someone is, but what they are experiencing right now. Practically speaking, this technique asks for patience. You do not need to stare or make others uncomfortable. You simply allow your attention to rest naturally, noticing without forcing conclusions. Over time, your sensitivity grows. You begin to sense when someone is truly present and when they are emotionally elsewhere. You learn when to speak, when to pause, and when to soften your approach. Most importantly, observing the eyes teaches us about ourselves. When we become aware of how easily we judge, assume, or react, we gain insight into our own mind. We see how often our interpretations are shaped by our inner state rather than by reality. This awareness is itself a form of wisdom. To observe the eyes skillfully is to practice humility. You are not trying to expose others. You are learning to see without harm. You are learning to understand without control. In this way, observation becomes an act of compassion. The eyes do not demand answers, they invite attention. And when we learn to look with calm presence rather than suspicion, understanding unfolds quietly, almost effortlessly. Second technique, understanding facial expressions. Before a person chooses their words, the face has already spoken. The human face is one of the most honest mirrors of inner life, not because it intends to reveal, but because emotion moves faster than conscious control. Even when someone carefully manages their tone and language, subtle expressions often appear for a brief moment, revealing what is truly being felt beneath the surface. These expressions are not dramatic or obvious. They are fleeting, easily missed, and often misunderstood, which is why they require a calm and attentive observer. These brief signals are often called micro-expressions. They flash across the face in an instant, sometimes for less than a second, before the mind has time to correct or mask them. A flicker of sadness before a polite smile appears, a tightening of the brow before words of agreement are spoken, a moment of tension before laughter fills the space. These moments are not performances. They are reflexes. They arise from the emotional body, not from intention. To understand facial expressions skillfully, it is important to know where to look without turning observation into inspection. Certain areas of the face tend to reveal more than others. The eyebrows often reflect mental effort, confusion, concern, or surprise. When they draw inward or downward, it can signal inner tension or worry. When they lift suddenly, it may reflect curiosity, recognition, or disbelief. The corners of the mouth are equally revealing. A genuine sense of ease softens the mouth naturally, while discomfort often creates tightness, pulling the corners downward or compressing them inward. The forehead also carries valuable information. Subtle lines forming quickly may signal stress, concentration, or emotional strain long before a person acknowledges it verbally. One of the most important distinctions to understand is the difference between a social smile and a genuine one. A social smile is polite, controlled, and often limited to the mouth. A genuine smile engages the entire face, especially the eyes. When joy is real, the muscles around the eyes soften and narrow slightly, creating warmth that cannot be forced. This distinction is not meant to expose dishonesty, but to recognize emotional reality. Someone may smile while feeling anxious or sad, not to deceive, but to protect themselves or maintain harmony. Buddhist wisdom approaches these observations with compassion rather than judgment. To see an emotion is not to condemn it. To recognize tension is not to accuse. Awareness without kindness becomes surveillance. Awareness with compassion becomes understanding. When we observe facial expressions with a calm mind, we stop interpreting them as threats or manipulations and begin to see them as signals of inner experience. A furrowed brow may reflect worry, not resistance. A tight mouth may reflect fear, not hostility. This shift in perception softens our responses. This softening is the true payoff of understanding facial expressions. When we begin to see what others are carrying internally, we naturally become gentler. Our tone changes. Our expectations relax. We give people more room to be human, rather than demanding perfect composure. Connection deepens not because we know more, but because we judge less. It is also important to remember impermanence. A single expression does not define a person. Emotions rise and fall continuously, shaped by context, memory, and circumstance. Buddhist teachings remind us not to freeze others in a single moment of observation. What we see is a snapshot, not an identity. Skillful observation always remains open and flexible. As this sensitivity develops, something subtle shifts in the observer as well. You become more aware of your own expressions, your own unconscious reactions. You notice how quickly emotion surfaces on your own face before words arrive. This awareness brings humility. It reminds you that everyone is navigating an inner world that is not always visible or easily articulated. Understanding facial expressions is not about gaining an advantage in conversation. It is about learning to meet others where they are, When you learn to read the face without judgment, connection becomes easier. Conversations feel safer. Trust builds quietly. And in that space of gentle awareness, understanding flows naturally, without force or effort. Third technique, interpreting body language. The body speaks before the mind has time to organize a story. Long before a person chooses their words or shapes their expressions, the body has already responded. This is why body language is often described as the most honest form of communication. It is not because the body intends to reveal truth, but because it reacts instinctively, guided by emotion and inner state, rather than careful thought. The body moves first, and the explanation comes later. When we observe body language, we are not searching for a single gesture to decode. We are learning to see patterns. Posture, movement, and stillness together create a picture that reveals how someone is relating to the moment. A body that closes inward, shoulders slightly hunched or arms drawn close, often signals protection. It may reflect discomfort, uncertainty, or the need for emotional safety. This does not mean rejection or hostility. It simply means the person is guarding something within themselves. In contrast, an open posture, relaxed shoulders, and a naturally oriented body often indicate readiness and ease. The person is not bracing against the moment, they are participating in it. Movement also carries meaning. Restlessness, such as constant shifting, tapping, or adjusting, can point to inner unease or impatience. The body is attempting to release tension that the mind has not yet acknowledged. Slower, grounded movements often reflect a calmer internal state. These individuals do not rush their gestures because they are not rushing their thoughts. Their actions feel deliberate, not because they are calculated, but because they are settled. The hands deserve special attention. Even when the mouth is silent, the hands often continue speaking. Fidgeting fingers, clenched fists, or hidden hands can signal anxiety, restraint, or guardedness. Open palms, relaxed gestures, and natural movement often suggest comfort and openness. These signals are rarely conscious. People may carefully choose their words, but they seldom manage their hands with the same level of control. The hands reveal what the mind is holding. Stillness itself is also a powerful signal. There is a difference between relaxed stillness and tense immobility. A person who is truly at ease often moves very little, yet their presence feels clear and grounded. Their stillness is not rigid, it is alive. On the other hand, a person under stress may appear still while carrying significant internal tension. Their stillness feels tight rather than spacious. Observing this distinction requires sensitivity, not analysis. Buddhist understanding reminds us that these signals should never be read in isolation. A single crossed arm or restless movement does not define a person. Body language must be viewed as a whole, within context, and over time. Reading isolated gestures leads to misunderstanding. Seeing the full picture leads to clarity. This is why patience is essential. True observation unfolds gradually. Equally important is the state of the observer. If your own mind is distracted, anxious, or judgmental, you will misinterpret what you see. You will project your inner noise onto another person's movements. To see clearly, you must be present. Not scanning for meaning, but allowing meaning to emerge. When your attention is steady, patterns reveal themselves without effort. This practice is not about gaining control over interactions. It is about attuning yourself to reality as it is. The body does not exist to be decoded like a puzzle. It exists as an expression of lived experience. When we observe with humility, body language becomes a doorway to empathy. We begin to sense when someone needs space, when they need reassurance, and when they are ready to engage more deeply. As with the other techniques, this awareness also turns inward. You begin to notice your own posture, your own movements, your own moments of tension or ease. You see how your body responds before your mind catches up. This self-awareness softens judgment and deepens compassion, both for yourself and for others. To interpret body language skillfully, is to see the whole person, not just their words. It is to understand that communication is happening at many levels at once. And when you learn to be fully present with what is unfolding, understanding arises naturally, without force, without intrusion, and without harm. As we come to the end of this journey, it is important to return to the heart of what we have explored. Mind reading, in its truest sense, is not a collection of techniques or tricks. It is not something you switch on when you want to analyze others. It is a way of living, a state of presence that allows understanding to arise naturally. When awareness is steady, perception becomes clear without effort. The most essential requirement for this kind of understanding is simple, yet often overlooked. The mind must be in the present. If your attention is trapped in past experiences, regrets, or assumptions, you will see others through the lens of memory rather than reality. If your mind is racing toward future outcomes, plans, or fears, you will miss what is unfolding right in front of you. Only a mind that rests in the present moment can truly perceive another person as they are. This is why monks, sages, and deeply grounded individuals often seem to see through people with ease. It is not because they possess more information or sharper intellect. It is because their minds are quiet. They are not competing for attention. They are not rehearsing responses. They are not distracted by inner noise. Their stillness allows them to notice what others overlook. The practical application of this wisdom begins not with others, but with yourself. Before observing another person, observe your own state of mind. Notice your breath. Notice your posture. Notice whether you are tense, rushed, or emotionally charged. Gently settle yourself before turning your attention outward. When your mind is calm, observation becomes compassionate rather than invasive. As you move through daily life, practice listening more than speaking. Allow pauses. Let silence do some of the work. When you stop filling every moment with words, space opens. In that space, understanding appears. You begin to see patterns instead of isolated gestures. You respond with clarity instead of impulse. Relationships soften. Conflicts lose their urgency. Remember, this practice is not about control or advantage. It is about connection and maturity. It is about learning to meet others with awareness rather than assumption. When we speak less, we begin to see more. When we see more, we judge less. And when judgment fades, understanding deepens naturally. If this reflection resonated with you, take a moment to practice it in your next interaction. Stay present, observe gently, and if you feel called to continue exploring this path of calm awareness, support this space by liking the video, subscribing for more teachings, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Your presence here is part of this practice.